Hello all. I'm just at the Meenasil Community Centre, and I'm just going to be going on a wee drive. So it's not going to be a far trip, just into the countryside for about 20 minutes or something. And you're more than welcome to come along and join me. So I'm going to start off from the community centre, the Meenasil Community Centre, and then I'll record all the driving on the dash cam, and I'll return back to here again. This isn't far from where I stay, so I'll just do all the car trips and that from the centre, the Meenasil community hub. Fancy name for it. So yeah, I'm going to go up by Templeton Woods, round about the Achterhouse area, Muirton, Burkhill, in that kind of area. We're not going far. So, but yeah, tag along with me and enjoy it. So sit back and relax. Okay, thanks. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm actually just doing a voice audio during the driving scene. So I'll just have a wee blether with you. It's just so that you've got something to listen to. I'm going to put I'm going to make up my own music, as I always do on my videos. It's copyright free, obviously. I use copyright free apps to make up my own music. I'm no musician, so I just basically wing it, as they say. And I try and make something that will sound interesting and break the boredom. That's the idea behind it. But yeah, so I've got to keep this in sync, so I'm turning on to Charleston Drive now, and then heading down towards Spade Drive. That's where I'll be turning down next. So, as I say, I hope you are sitting back and relaxing over a cup of coffee or tea or whatever. That's what I'm doing, and just watching this video as it's playing, and adding some of the voice audio. So we're just passing the shops. It used to be it's a Chinese takeaway. It used to be run by a guy called Peter. This is way back in the early 90s, and the stuff you got over there was really good. I went there regularly in the early 90s for my Chinese takeaways. But yeah, there's other places in Meenasil as well that do Chinese takeaways. I tend to go, I go to these ones instead now. Peter left many years ago, and I've just went to other places. I'll just leave it at that. But it's gone through many owners, so I'll just go and do Millake Avenue. Yeah. It's part of the bus route that I drive. Well, it used to be when I drive the buses in Dundee City, and this was part of the 17 route. It used to come down this way. It used to go by the technology park. It used to come down here and then up to 9 Wells, and in the evenings. It went down in the evenings, but during the day it was the opposite way around. It went up Millake Avenue in the clockwise direction during the day, and it went round in the anti-clockwise direction at night. But that was a while ago. It doesn't go down there now. So, but yeah, no, I'm just adding these things on just to help me synchronise this video. But we're heading up to the lunch centre shortly on the right hand side. You can just see it coming up with the view about now. Yeah, that's part of many of the Dundee Council gyms. I mean, I've got a Leisure Active card. It's basically a membership. The one I've got is £29 a month, or thereabouts. And gives you unlimited access to all of the Dundee City Council gyms, swimming, and when of course the schools are off term and at the weekends you could get to use their swimming pools as well. That's the Harris, Grove Academy and St Paul's in Kirton. So it's quite handy for that. You've got a good selection of gyms and swimming to choose from. So. Yeah, so as I say, this is just basically a voice audio. I haven't wrote anything down and just winging it, as they say, and I'm going to be doing that with the music as well. I'm going to get the app loaded up and just make up some sounds that are interesting, that break the boredom. That's good fun. I mean, I enjoy doing all this, so it's just experimenting with all the new apps. It used to be the NCR on the right hand side there. That was a few years ago now, but it's completely changed. It's ASDA. So we're up the top now, so we come on to the Liff Road. So you've probably heard me talk about, if you've seen my videos you'll probably know what I've mentioned before about the Mandela effect. It's a fascinating subject, for me anyway, and if you're interested and you find it something you want to know, to learn more about, if you want to know more about what it's about, or if you've got an interest in finding out what the Mandela effect is, then I suggest you would go online, or whatever means that you know of, but if you go online, type in the Mandela effect and do your own research on that subject, you'll get basically what is available online about it. And I found out about that phenomenon. Well, I mean, no, I'll rephrase it. I found something online that resembles the phenomena that I experienced before I knew that it was called the Mandela effect, or what they call the Mandela effect. So in other words, I've experienced something before I'd done research into it, and I came across stuff online that resembles what I experienced beforehand. So they call it the Mandela effect, and it seems to resemble what I remember, or what I've experienced before. Now, I'm not saying that it's the same thing, or I don't know what it is, but I do know what I experienced, and it just sort of like resembles it. I mean, it is to say, it could be the stuff online is only what's available online. That is their theories that's out there on that subject. I mean, it's not necessarily what it actually is. It's just what they say that it is, what they describe it as. That's their version of it, their theories of what they call the Mandela effect. So I'm not calling it the Mandela effect as such like that. I refer to it as a Mandela effect because it's something that you could type in online to get information available online about it, and then you make your own mind up when you've researched this stuff online. It's then up to you what you decide to make of it, and that's my suggestion, and that's what I do. So the Mandela effect, it's like, you could say it's history changing. Now, whether you take that in the literal sense or not is really how you look on it. If you go by what some of this stuff is suggested, like timelines where you're living in one dimension and you're basically living in a dimension where there is a multi-dimensions, So if you like, you could say that the reality you're living in is just one version of multi-versions of realities, where you could maybe perhaps slide between the two, as it's put. So if you're moving between one reality to another, the other reality that you've moved into may be very similar to the one that you've left, but with very subtle differences. And these differences, if you pick them up, if you notice slightly different things that have happened in history in that reality that you've moved into, then it's called, what it's been called online anyway, is that they seem to refer that as that you have been Mandela affected. In other words, you recognise, you're able to detect the differences between the realities. So it's a bit, it's not an easy thing to explain, unless you've got some sort of base understanding. I mean, like I say, I'm not saying that's what it is, I'm just saying that that's what I've found online, what has been described online as to what they're describing it as. That's only what that's the wording that they use, like timelines and dimensions, etc, etc. I don't know what it is, but I do know that I've experienced differences, basically things that have changed, like history. I mean, I've got many examples, but I can't possibly squeeze them all into this 25-minute video because it's just not enough time. I have done other videos about the Mandela effect on my YouTube channel if you look back to it. As I say, these things are only the experiences that I've experienced. It's, like I say, it's not an easy thing to explain, and I think it's really near impossible to get somebody to see it the same way as you do. It's really up to the person to see it for themselves. I mean, they've got to really experience it themselves, and I believe that we all do and we all can, but we're just at different stages. So we may not believe that we're experiencing it, but we are actually experiencing everything. But I'll give you just a few examples. The ones I've experienced anyway. I mean, the ones that are online, I can relate to some of them. There's others, examples online, where I wouldn't know either way. But it's not like, as I say, I get the stuff that I see online, I don't get the idea put into my head and then say, oh yeah, I go along with it. No, I genuinely experience it. But not all the ones I've experienced are online. I mean, a lot of them are my own personal ones, the ones I've experienced myself. When I say personal, I don't mean that it's only me that's experienced it. It means that I've come across it myself. I'll say some of the ones that I've experienced myself, and I'll also go through some of the ones that are online that you might be able to relate to. I mean, you might even be able to relate to the ones that I've experienced. I don't know, it depends on who you are and what you've seen. But I drive the buses and I know what the roads look like, and I've seen road markings change. I've seen signs that have changed as well. In broad general terms, I don't mean like change dramatically, I just mean very, very subtly. Nothing, it sounds bizarre and sounds like you could just dismiss it easily. Fair enough. But when I say road markings, I mean like you've got all the road layout. I don't mean it's changed like priority of the roads, anything major, but just subtle changes, like the way the markings could be at a certain angle going across a road. So I've come across the same markings doing the same thing, meaning the same thing, but just slightly in a different shape. Like, there's another one where the road surface has changed very slightly compared to the last time I was on it, because I thought at one time it had actually resurfaced it, but they couldn't possibly have resurfaced it in that timeline, because it must be done exceedingly quick. there wasn't any resurfacing done, but yet it had changed. You see, that it's not really, you won't really understand it very well if you've not got a base understanding. You would just dismiss it as absurd or bizarre or just nonsense, if you like, because it's what you're used to it. And I believe that people that, well, when I've done research on the Mandela effect, they've also experienced being, well, told that it's just impossible, basically, to put it mildly or politely. Which is, well, fair enough, because we're at different stages, you see. But that's not the best way of explaining the examples without having to actually show you photos and everything, but I could do that in a future video where I could explain it a lot clearer. This is just, as I say, this voice audio has just been, and just winging it. I haven't got it written down or scripting it and trying to just explain to a microphone, so there's nobody there to talk to it, and just trying to put it out there as best as I can so that you could get some idea as to what I'm talking about, that's all. And of course at the same time, if you just don't want to listen to me blether on, then at least you could enjoy the scenery. That's the best I could do with the dash cam that I've got. But it's a nice bit of countryside. I mean, so there's an old bus down at our depot. It's a scrap bus. Now I'm interested in old buses and old cars. I look at them. I like knowing how they work, and it's when I see it, I always have a wee look past it and just look to see what's been taken off at this time, and etc. etc. As it's called, it's cannibalised. They just take parts off the old bus to supply other old buses to keep them on the road. So every time I look past and say, oh, that's another bit off, that's another bit off. Well, it was one time where I saw that both headlights on each side were removed. I didn't think anything of it. I just said, oh, right, there's the headlights gone, to myself. Yep, they've took them away. I'll be supplying another bus. And it was just one day I came in, not that long after, and I saw that the headlight, one of them was back in. Now I remember them both being taken off. There's two on each side, and there were the whole four of them, both sides, they were removed. And one day I came in, not long after that, I just looked past as I always do, so I wonder if they took off this time. And I noticed the headlights were on the near side. And I thought, what if they put them back on for? They took them off. They never put bits back on. If you've scrapped a vehicle, you never take bits off and then put them back on again. No, you just store them away if you don't need them. So I thought, that's odd. So I looked closer at it, and I says, they haven't been taken off. And I think I went away and checked. Not officially, like just I blether to the mechanics when they're out and about in the yard, and I just thought, I think I must have asked one of them just to confirm if they took it off or something, but apparently it had never been taken off. I mean, they don't take parts off an old vehicle that's scrapped and then decide to put them back on again, unless they're intent on putting the vehicle back on the road. But that vehicle has got no intentions on going back on the road again. It's too far gone. I'll never go back on the road. So they wouldn't have put these parts back on in the exact same way. When they take bits off, they just normally hack them off. But they wouldn't have put it back in as if it had never been taken off. That's just one example anyway. And I know for a fact that I remember them when there was no lights on. So it's like, you could say, if you've watched the old sci-fi series The Twilight Zone, because I did, and I grew up in the 80s, and I loved that show. Now that doesn't mean that I'm biased and that I'm easily led into believing the supernatural stuff. No, I believe it because I've experienced stuff like that. Okay, when I was a kid I had an imagination on that sort of stuff. It was interesting, all that kind of stuff. I loved that show. And there's loads of sci-fi stuff that I like. But that doesn't mean that my brain's wired to just accept everything as sci-fi. No, I genuinely know what I've experienced. And it was really up until the last few years, 3 or 4 years, that it's got really intense. Even well before that, before I'd done research on the Mandela effect. I experienced stuff like that. I didn't know that there was something online going to be called the Mandela effect. That's before that. But there's lots of stuff, stuff out there that's fascinating. But I'm not going to go too much into that on this video because there's just not enough time. I would have to make a video titled and dedicated for that. I have done a couple of videos earlier on my YouTube channel, if you want to look back at them. One's titled The Mandela Effect, but it just gives you there's a couple, I think, 2 or 3 of them. But as I say, that was just early videos, so maybe on the next one I'll try and make it even clearer. I'll make my points even clearer. I'll have the stuff scripted out, and I'll try and explain them, maybe with even photos as well at the same time. And for those that are interested, of course, I mean, it's something that I say it's something you've got to be interested in. Otherwise, you may just dismiss it as a pack of nonsense and just not listen anymore. Which is, well, fair enough. I mean, I'm not trying to convert anybody into thinking that this is real or make. You know, I'm just saying my experiences on my video, and it's up to you to make what you like of it. But it is a fascinating thing for me, and I just want to try and relate that over. Like you say, I'm not making it up or anything. I'm not trying to just fool anybody into thinking that that these things exist or anything. I've nothing to gain by doing that. I don't have any intentions of trying to fool people that this is real, but it's I'm not trying to trick people into thinking this is real. I'm just telling you what I've experienced, and I always say that you should do your own research into it. So it's quite a lot of examples, but that's some of the ones. I mean, I've got quite a few, but I can't think of them all right at this moment in time because I haven't got stuff pre-scripted and just winging it. I'm just making it, and I haven't got anything in any order. I've got to get this voice audio done to get this video made because I've got other things to do, and it's all down to time. So I've got to just try and quickly get this video made up, compiled up, finished, saved, and then I could get other stuff done that I need to get done. I mean, I've only got like one day off and back to work and on shifts. As you know, even although I finished on an early shift yesterday, I was just absolutely knackered and I couldn't do half the stuff that I'd like to do. So time is tight. So I've got to just make the most of what I've got, and this is the best I could do at the moment. But in the future, I'll get a video with I'll get the time. When I get the time, I'll get it all compiled up and try and get some better explained examples. I mean, it doesn't matter really, because at the end of the day, if you've experienced it and you know what I'm talking about, you'll know what I mean. I know what I mean because I've experienced it. But it's difficult for me to relate this to the viewer because I don't know who's listening to this, so I don't know what level of understanding that you're at. If you've known about the Mandela effect, then you'll have a much better understanding of what I'm talking about. But if you haven't even heard of the Mandela effect, then you'll probably just, I wouldn't be surprised if you would dismiss it. Or you may be curious. Like me, I was always curious, open-minded person. I'm not saying, by no means am I saying that you're not an open-minded person. I'm not saying that. It just means if you haven't heard of the Mandela effect, then you might wonder what it's about, which is fine. Or you might have already heard what I've said about it and say, oh no, I'm not buying into it, which is what I've experienced before. I've tried to explain it to some people and they just won't buy into it, which is fair enough. Fair enough. You know, they think that it's beyond all possibilities because there's no proof, which is fine. That's fine. That's good. That's good. I always respect everybody's point of view on the situation. Like you say, I'm not here to change your point of view. I'm just saying what I've experienced. That's all. And I find it interesting, fascinating. And I hope that if you're interested, that you find something that will get you interested in it even further, something you can learn about it. I mean, and just off the top of my head here, thinking about some of the examples that I've came across online that I could relate to. I've probably mentioned before on another video, I'm trying to think of now. It's the spelling of Volkswagen, but I've mentioned that. It used to be spelt with an O at the end, but now it's got an E at the end. The last two letters at the end is EN. It used to be for me ON. Always had. And when I say that history's changed, I've had a book in my cupboard that I've had for years, and when I discovered that the spelling had changed, I looked back at the book that I've had for many years, and it too had changed. It changed on that book. I don't mean that somebody's took the book and changed the spelling. I mean it's changed Mandela style. In other words, it's where I've shifted dimensions from a dimension where it used to be spelt with EN at the end of it to the dimension where it's now spelt with, other way around. I've shifted from a dimension from where it was spelled ON to a dimension to where it is spelled EN. Now, it might, as I say, sound totally bizarre to you, but I'm just putting it out there as best as I can at the moment. What else? You know, it's like trying to pick one from many. The brain gets scrambled. There's just so many to choose from. It's hard to just focus in on one. And as I say, I'm looking at this video, the clock's ticking, I've got to think fast, I've got to think what one's going to be easy for me to explain in the time that I've got left here. Gosh. There's just so many. It's called brain scrambled. I can't really think of one at the moment because there's just that many. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm actually just looking at the video here and I can see there's about 8 minutes left. So there's no point me picking one that's really complicated to explain. So I've got to try and think what one would be the best one, most popular one. I don't want to just pick one that's out there that's claimed to be a Mandela effect, but I don't have any I can't relate to it because there are quite a few. There's stuff out there that I wouldn't know the difference either way. So I'm not going to use those as an example. I'll only use the ones that I could relate to and give you those for an example. Because otherwise I'd just be taking one that I don't know either way and just put it out there. I'm not going to do that. The actual Volkswagen badge has changed as well. It's visually changed very, very subtly. But without showing you a photograph, it's difficult to explain. But in a nutshell, there's like a line between the two letters, between the V and the W. If you know the way the Volkswagen badge is, you'll see now that there's a very, very thin line between the V and the W. For me, that always used to be joined. It's just one piece. But without a photograph, it's not really the best way of explaining it. I would have to do that on a photo, in which I'll do in a later video. I mean, there's like the spelling of McDonald's and McDonald's. It used to be McDonald's, that's the hamburger place, Burger King. All these, you know what I mean, McDonald's restaurant. It used to be McDonald's. But now it's spelled and pronounced McDonald's, MC, and then Donald's. It used to be Mac for me. I always remember it being called McDonald's. M-A-C and then Donald's. And i.e. that's how you've got the Big Mac spelled. It's like the residue of the... I mean, I mentioned residue, but that's just opening up another can of worms. In other words, without explaining what residue means, you won't really have a clue what I'm on about. So I'm trying to avoid using that term, because there's only 5 minutes left and there's not much point. You know what, I'm just going to leave it now because I'm going to be out of time. I didn't really do a good job of that, but I will do it in a later video. So I'll just say where we're going. We're just heading up 9 Wells Avenue. Yeah, so we're just 9 Wells Hospital and all the students' houses is on the left hand side, and you've got all the bot houses on the right. We're just heading up towards the Glams Road Circle. Oh no, you've got a circle before that, sorry. You've got the circle coming up very shortly. Yeah, well, there's a few things I could just think of here. There's these sort of, there's species of birds that I've never saw, not a bird, like, I don't know all the different species of birds. Like, I know you've got the pigeons, the seagulls and etc. That's but as far as it goes, I don't have much. But there is another type of bird out there, a species that I've never seen before, or heard before. Well, it sounds different, the way that it makes its singing and that. It's not how I've heard it before in the past. It's quite new to me, and I'm going to have to get a photograph made up, a slideshow, and show you all the examples that I've experienced. There's also one time where I came up with a factory. I used to work in a factory many years ago, or well before the buses, and it must be a good 13. I mean, I've been on the buses 12 years, so it'll be probably a year before that. But I worked many years before in other factories as well. But anyway, I came out of the factory one day, and there was a fence there that wasn't there before, and I wondered why they've put this up. But apparently it's been there all the time. I mean, this is like ours, so they wouldn't have put a fence up so quickly, so soon. It just wouldn't happen. So you could say that it's like another shift in reality or dimension. Now, I'm not saying that that's what it actually is. That's just what the research suggests when I've typed in online and done online research about the subject. That's some of their theories on it. I don't know what it is, but that's what the theories, some of them are suggesting. So, but I have experienced that. I have saw that. And this is going back many years. Anyway, we're just about to pull back into the starting point, which is the community centre. This used to be at one time, Hillside Court multi-storey block used to be here. And then just down a bit from there was Gildy Hill Court multi. Yeah, I done a video on the demolition of these multi-storey blocks. See, Venus Hill has gone through a lot of changes, as is the city of Dundee has gone through changes as well, you know. So we're just back at the start. It was just a wee short trip round about Dundee and Angus. So I think now you're going to be able to get the camcorder footage, so I'm just going to stop here. Okay, and you'll see me in the camcorder. Alright, that's us back to the start again. It was just a circular, just a huddle in the car. It was exactly 15 miles. It was a 15-mile circular trip, and it was 36 minutes. So, or 35, it took me a couple of minutes to do it, 34, 35 minutes. So about half an hour. Yeah, it was just a short drive, that was all, just a wee bit of wind. So I'm back to the Meenasol Community Centre. And, well, yeah, it was quite good. I went down by the, what do you call it, Templeton Woods, continued on down to Ochterhouse. Then I came out onto the main road that goes into Muirhead, and then I turned down the road that goes into Fowlis and Liff, and it came out at Earl Grey, and right along Riverside Drive and then up 9 Mills Avenue. So, yeah, it was just a wee huddle. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Just something to sit back and relax with. That's get a coffee or whatever. Okay, thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Okay, thanks. Cheers. Bye.